mute for a little bit or stay on. Just make sure you don't have any background noises with you, Faris and Banu, and we'll just dive in. Heidi, I am super excited that we're starting this. You know this, and I feel like I've posted on it, but I started the series really because very early in my career, I felt like there were lots of really amazing leaders, but I didn't see myself reflected in their leadership stories. And as I started talking and growing in healthcare through mentors, through ACHE, through friends like you, I realized that there are so many powerful stories that just don't get told. And so wanted to make sure that we change that. And this space is about that, about making sure that when our friends in the audience are here today, it feels like they're just sitting down with you and me having chai at our dining table and having the real conversation, what happened in our life, highs, lows, everything in between.
Mhm.
And that's really what this is. For those in the audience, I want you to know that there has been no rehearsal, no practice. Heidi doesn't even know what questions I'm asking her. So it's just coming from the heart and really, truly just a conversation between two friends. With that, let's get started. Heidi, I'll start off with your official title and then we'll just dive into who we
Yeah.
are. Heidi is the Chief Growth and Revenue Officer at Resilient Healthcare right now. She mentioned it earlier. I've known Heidi for over a decade. And our conversation started because I was looking to find a friend, a mentor in healthcare. And we were through ACHE had one of those like search and find a mentor friend conversations. And so I reached out and we just connected, and it's been a wonderful journey. What I admire the most about you, Heidi, is not just what you've accomplished, but how you have navigated your journey. And so I want to start off just hearing you tell us about kind of the what happened at the beginning in your career, right? And
Yeah.
what was the uncertainty? What kind of struggles did you have? Where are you now? And how is that all connected? But before we dive there, I want to do one thing, which is I know you and I bonded about our love for chai cups. So we talked about things that we have on the chai cup. So I want you to tell me which chai cup you picked for today and what does it say?
Yes, I live vicariously through the t-shirts I wear and through the mugs that I have. So my mugs very often will say the mood that I'm in, so my team knows. Like the one I take to work every day says chaos coordinator.
I
But
love
what
that.
I picked for today is the one that says women belong in all places where decisions are being made.
Oh, I love that. So I had two that I was debating today. Like you, I also live vicariously in my cups and sayings. Bella, my daughter, picked out the one that I have right now, which says she believed she could, so she did. But the other one that I was debating literally says, I'm not responsible for what my face does when you're talking to me. And that's a cup that I bring out once in a while. It's hidden when people can't see it. But okay, with that,
I
we'll
love
dive in. You tell me. Let's start
I
the
love it. And no,
story.
I
Tell me
definitely
about, yeah.
I have my warm cup of chai, like you said. We bond over chai as well. I'm half British, so I've got my PG tips with my
Okay,
chai latte creamer in there to
there you
truly
go.
get a
I
chai.
I had to make actual masala chai today, so here's
I need
to
to come over and get some. But Angie, I appreciate you asking, and I think our journeys and of life and career are number one individual and probably bumpy for each of us. And I think, you know, externally, um, it may look a little better than how I felt internally when I think and look back at my career. And similar to you, as an individual that started my career. I actually started my career at a dot com during the dot com days of the late 90s, early 2000s. Graduated from college, moved to Austin, and I left that's what made me a numbers nerd. So I was deep in there doing marketing when Google was brand new,
yeah.
Google Ads were brand new.
Oh
I
well.
was learning how to write Google Ads. I was literally had mass Excel spreadsheets where I was creating the algorithms on in Excel, I'll say on paper as to how much I was willing to pay for an ad. I knew I wanted to get into healthcare though. I knew that was something, and I went back, got my master's in healthcare administration. And I think it was at that point, Angie, and I went to Trinity University where I'm fortunate enough to be an adjunct professor there as well now. But we do an administrative residency. And I had opportunity to go into a health system. I had opportunity to go into consulting. And I really smiled when I had the opportunity to go into consulting.
Yeah.
And it's because I think that's what set the stage. The way that I was thinking about consulting is really how I've thought about my career, which is constantly learning
Mm-hmm.
and being, I say I'm in like the 24th year of my residency.
Mm-hmm.
The goal to constantly learn, challenge myself, learn something new. I am very fortunate. I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers early on in my career and started there as an intern and stayed there probably, I hate to say out loud, much longer than I probably thought I would. I was on the partner track there. I was there almost 13 years. And similar to you, didn't always see leaders
Yeah.
reflected in the
Yeah.
individuals that were there. But what I did have were a lot of leaders around me that also recognized that
Mm.
and invested in me in a
That's awesome.
way that they knew where they had gaps.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And they knew, I say PricewaterhouseCoopers was, PwC was ahead of their time. We were doing affinity groups back in the early 2000s. One of the first to put out workforce diversity plans for individuals. And I appreciate them for setting that foundation. But I've moved, throughout my career, as I think about what's next for me. It's filling those gaps of where I think I have holes in learning. And not every leader has necessarily been that type of
Yeah.
support. And that's, I think, what's, kind of I've absorbed into my own, what type of leader do I want to be?
Yeah. Do you feel like you've answered that question now?
I think leadership is a journey. Clearly, everything in my life is a journey.
Yeah.
But I feel like leadership is a journey, but I know the leader I want to be.
Okay.
I said, so kind of taking through my career, I went from Price Waterhouse Coopers. From there, I decided I wanted to do more in the DFW market. So I was at the vice president of strategy
Yeah.
for Medical City Healthcare here in North Texas, HCA North Texas. And from there, went back into consulting because I missed that aspect of just helping organizations across the nation. And what I carried through is being the type of leader, and this is styles pulled from
Yeah.
multiple, the type of leader that is curious,
Mhm.
not punitive,
Mhm.
but knows how to and aspires to, I will say, maybe not always knows how, but
Yeah.
aspires to bring out the best in the members of my team.
Mhm.
And I said to one of my prior colleagues, it was an individual that was on one of my teams in my last consulting role. I said, please give me feedback. I
Okay.
think as leaders, we always need to be open to feedback. And I said, if I ever give you feedback without first asking you why you did it the way you did, I want you to challenge me
Okay.
because I don't want to tell you it's wrong before understanding why you did it the way you did.
Being open to, first of all, having your team challenge you is huge. And being able to articulate that as a core leadership value is quite profound, Heidi. You know that most people don't do it that way. So I feel like where I want to go with that story is take us back to why did that become so important to you? Why, what happened? Usually there's a story that goes with it. I feel like you haven't even told me that story so far. So tell me about why that became so important to you. I'll sidebar to say that leadership is definitely an evolution. You and I've talked about it. Even our own leadership styles have changed since I first knew you.
Mhm.
And I think part of why this series is going to become such a critical part of my life is because I feel like we hear the social media version of what leadership is, right? So we get the high level snippets, but we
Yes.
don't really get to hear about what's causing it deep down. Where are those shifts happening? And I think it's those stories and those shifts that really bond people and bring
Yes.
connection and community. So tell me about why that became important to you.
Um, I think it comes from a place, and I love Brene Brown, if that I just absolutely
Yeah.
love Brene Brown. And maybe a turning point for me was listening to Brene Brown more and being comfortable with being vulnerable. Uh, and I'm going to go back, honestly, like early on, being raised in a culture where I was taught by my father, the number one thing that mattered is what other people thought of me, not the what I've thought of myself. Okay, we're getting deep here. We're getting into therapy. I'm going to owe you for therapy after this.
Put it on
But
my tab.
I spent the early part of my career people pleasing.
Mm.
And I realized at some point, and it may have actually been my pivot away from PricewaterhouseCoopers, which again, I adore them as an organization and the foundation they gave
I
me.
can feel the love for
Yeah,
PwC.
and it was they did so much for me. And what I recognized though at the time in that journey, and you keep in mind, there's almost 13 years it
Yeah,
took me to get to a place of recognizing that I was doing what other people wanted me to do. I was staying there to become a partner because other people believed that's where I could be, and I appreciate that from them. But that wasn't necessarily what I wanted for myself. And I think that became this moment of transition into also saying, what type of leader do I want to be? And I want to be the type of leader where people can be authentic with me,
yeah,
where they can tell me what they aspire to be. I don't want people to work for me that aren't happy being in the organization. I would rather coach you and coach you to a place where I know you will thrive. And I think being that type of leader really comes from a place of letting yourself be vulnerable. And I give Brene Brown again so much
yeah,
credit for starting that kind of conversation in my head of, am I okay with not being the type of leader that I had often seen, which was having all the answers?
yeah,
And I reached this point of saying, wait, the best leaders, the strongest leaders that I've been around are those that look around and say, these are my gaps. And I'm going to surround myself with people that can fill those gaps and challenge my thinking. And together we'll be a better team. And I'm okay with that because ultimately I'm still accountable for leading the team to success, but we can do it collectively. And I had many strong leaders through the years, even leading up to kind of that moment of Brene Brown using the phrase being vulnerable.
yeah.
And that would say, my success is actually based on yours. If I invest in you as my team, I'll naturally be successful. So my goal is to make you as successful as possible. So I had to wrap my head around no longer being a people pleaser and allowing myself to be authentic as well as my team.
Well, and as you say that, there are like so many threads that I want to go down with that, right? I have two that I'm going to hold on to. First one is I think leaders, not you, but other leaders that I've seen sometimes perpetuate the open door, but it's really a imaginary open door. And so I'm curious. This is, I know you, I know you're very true to yourself and you're a servant leader. And so when you put this out there in your teams and you've led for, many years, have you had somebody challenge you? And how did that play out? How did you feel? What did you think about that? Did you feel like, oh, great, this is awesome, like this is the way I wanted it to go? Or did it just feel messy? And how did you come out of that conversation?
No, I've had, and so when I say challenge, that doesn't have to be contentious, right?
Right.
That can be a, have you considered doing it this
Yeah.
way? So I think starting with an open space with my teams and letting them know I'm open to that because not every leader leads in
Is
that
open to that.
manner.
Yes.
And so the same at the same time, I'll say, but that doesn't always mean I'm going to go with what you bring
Yes.
to me
Correct.
because keep in mind, I may have more information
Mm-hmm.
about where the organization's headed that I can't share with the team
Yeah.
transparently. So you have to trust in me that I'm going to make the best decision. So I, again, coming from a place of vulnerability doesn't always feel good. I
Yeah.
think we all have to take ourselves away from getting defensive, and I'm
Yeah.
human. I'll go, oh no, the reason I said it that way is da 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 da. So I'll start to get defensive, but I have found some of my strongest team members are willing to come to me and give me feedback. And it's been feedback that I have actually I we have to work every day, right, to incorporate that feedback. Nobody's perfect. I have found like I am an over communicator at times. It's my neuro spicy brain. I feel like you have to know all the information to be able to make a decision because that's also how my brain works and communication style. And I had a team member of mine say to me once, uh, just tell me directly
Got
what
it.
you need from me. And that was his challenge back to me.
Yeah.
He's like, I feel like you're skirting around things. Tell me directly.
Yep.
And I looked at him and said, that is the best feedback, the best guidance you could have given
Yeah.
me. So I've now incorporated into my conversations with my team. My expectation of you is, so
Oh,
if you're going to
perfect.
come into my office and ask for guidance, number one, I'm going to, and I am not perfect at this either, but I try to say, what does great look like? That came from a
Okay.
podcast I listened to. But
Yes.
what would great look like? How would you solve this? And I'll help you work through it. But also, okay, based upon what we discussed, my expectation of you is you're going to walk out of my office and here's what you're going to do.
Yep.
And now there's clear communication to you meeting my expectations. And
100%.
then I think from a having team members come challenge me, there's less challenge because we have clear communication.
Got
They
it.
know what the expectations are. They know they can come in and go, have you considered this? And that open communication is a safe space.
Got it. I'm going to take us in a slightly different direction, kind of going back in time. You and I had talked about, actually, we bonded over the fact that we have preemies,
Yep.
right? And so one of the things that I remember very distinctly, the story that you had told me about, you know, almost being on that hospital bed
Yeah.
when the babies were born and the twins were born. And after that, how you were engaging, but where your brain couldn't quite shut off, and you were like, why they didn't, the organization didn't just shut down because I
Yeah.
wasn't there. That was such a funny thing, but it resonated with me because I was the same way. I mean, it sounds silly saying it, but when I had my daughter, it was obviously an emergency, right? But even as they were rolling me to the L&D, I was still sending work texts.
Mhm.
And at the 2 days later, I was like, hey, what happened to that project? And they were like, stop texting us, go
Yeah.
back to doing what you need to do. But take me down that path. And then, the other piece, and I want you to connect it a little bit. So tell me about your state of mind, kind of how you went through there.
Yeah.
And connect that for me for advice on what you have shared with, and you and I've talked about this. You've given me that personally as insight for myself earlier in my life and my career. But what do you have based on that lived experience that you recommend to early careerists or those that are earlier in their journey about how to think about your role in life versus your work?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's such a big question and so personal to
Yeah.
each of us,
Yeah.
right? So no judgment zone for anyone that chooses the path that they take and where they put their time. I've reflected a lot in my life, and what we know is finite is is time. We don't know how much time we
Yeah.
have in this life, but that is finite. And as I have gone through my career, 25 plus years of who gets my energy and who gets my time, and to the story you were telling for those joining us, uh, I almost lost my life and my children's life when I had them prematurely. I was hospitalized before I had them. My organs were shutting down. And I had said to Angie in one of our conversations, you
Yeah.
would think that type of experience would just profoundly have changed the way
Yeah.
that I viewed everything. And it did in some ways. Uh, and I think I had to reconcile, like you said, the fact I was like, oh, well, I went out on leave and I was gone for 6 months, and the healthcare advisory practice at PricewaterhouseCoopers did not close down. What do you
Yeah.
mean? And it was this like, oh my gosh, okay, yes, like they will go on without me.
Yeah.
Every company will go on without you. You will be missed. There are people that you have made an impact on their lives, but the company will go on without you. And it was in that it really made me say, and again, it wasn't immediate. I stayed for years after having my kids, but what matters to me? What is important to me? And my career has actually taken me from a really large worldwide organization to where I am today, which is a startup with, less than like 20 people because what I've asked myself consistently in my education journey, because like I said, I'm on my like 25th year of my residency, is what is the impact
Yeah.
that I want to make? And where can I make that impact? I want to add value and I want to be valued in the organizations I'm with.
Yeah.
And so to some people, it probably looks like I've gone backwards in a career because I went from huge company to small company that is like doing amazing things and will
Yeah.
soon be that big company. But it's the most I've probably ever been engaged in picking my kids up from school, dropping them off. I'm with people that understand that balance of family and work. And I didn't always own my calendar in that way, and the roles I was in and the jobs I was in. And so kind of bringing all of that together in the like process that I've gone through in my life is and turning it into the advice, whether it's early careerist or anyone that's just questioning, is I went through for my own journey a time of why am I even in healthcare? What am I trying to do? What matters to me? Am I bringing my best self forward? And whether it's at work or do I have the time with my family? And I had a great mentor that once had me lay out this journey of every 5 years from family, work, title, faith, what did I want to accomplish along that timeline? And I filled out all these boxes. And that's helped guide me not to titles or not to organizations, but to what's true to me. And again, whether it's an early careerist or someone that's just going through their own career journey, going through that exercise of saying, okay, over the next 10 years and just laying out year by year and across the categories that are important to me, what would I like to accomplish? It's almost like a vision board, but
Yeah.
for us data nerds, it's in Excel and just laying it out in that way. And I use that to guide me
I mean, that
in
is
my path.
basically strategic planning for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think that's great. And it's something you and I know that you've shared that with me in the past, and I haven't really put that together formally in that way. But something fun and cute that we did as a family, we actually do vision boards in our household. And one of the things that I did for myself at the beginning of this year is I wrote out not just my vision board is usually like 1 year, what do I want to accomplish? But then I wrote out if I had no constraints, what would my ideal life look like 5 years from now, personally and professionally? And
Yeah.
then scale that and look at, what are the things you need to do to go there. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting the way that your brain starts to think when you open up those boundaries. I know we have a few folks on the call and we have just a few minutes. So I want to actually open it up to see if anybody has any questions for Heidi or I. You can unmute and ask, or you can type it into chat. I'll give them a few seconds to think about that. While they're thinking, I had a question for you, and this is a little personal, but hopefully something that you wouldn't mind sharing. One moment that you almost quit, whether
Oh,
it's healthcare or,
yeah.
just a role.
Oh, wow. There's probably more than one.
Oh, tell me one.
Um, and so I won't name organizations
No, of course not.
but I think we all reach a point of burnout and we feel that burnout.
Yeah,
And instead of saying like all the times, because I think we all have those days where we're like, I'm done. And then
yeah,
we show up the next day, right?
right, right.
But I constantly ask myself, am I adding value and am I being valued?
Uh, Two very
And for
critical
the answer,
questions.
that's what matters to me. Now,
Yeah.
everyone has to come up with their own questions as to what's
Questions.
important to them and their roles. But for me, it's am I adding value and am I being valued?
Yeah,
If the answer to either of those is no, or I feel like it's working its way towards no, for me, it's time to start moving on.
that's really personal. Thank you for sharing. But it's also very insightful for everybody in the audience. It's not about what makes you quit, but it's about knowing very clearly what are your decision making
Yeah,
points.
yeah.
Um, let's see. It looks like nobody has any questions, so I get to talk for a whole, well, actually I'm at time. So What is a podcast or a book that you're reading right now that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Uh, can I give you a couple? Because I've
Yes.
got my like kind of work focus, but then I have my guilty pleasures. And
I want
I
both.
personally, again, we all have to find our outlets. We
Hmm.
all have to find like that space. And so I'm a podcaster. Okay, neurospicy. I told you that
Yeah.
ADHD here. I'm probably halfway through a dozen books. So I'm not going to give you a book. But podcast wise, I love Adam Grant's. So he does rethinking. Anything Brene Brown does, love listening to her. This is an older one, but I absolutely love it. When I said earlier about the what does great look like,
Mhm.
that's Cy Wakeman, CY, last name Wakeman. And she's got a podcast called No Ego, and that she's reposted. And it's about leadership. And she's the one that really tried to ingrain. I heard her speak and then listened to her podcast, the not solving the problems for your teams, but helping them to solve them.
Yeah.
And how do you get to that? And that's that phrase, what would great look like in this moment?
Yeah.
And having them answer the questions because sometimes they just need the leader to support. That's that. My guilty pleasures are crime podcasts, like Crime Junkie. Friday nights in our household are called Murder Shows in Comfy Clothes.
I love that.
And my daughter and I have sweatshirts that say that. And we watch Dateline in 2020
Oh, wow.
and we listen to crime podcasts.
That
So
sounds,
funny that that's my outlet. That seems a little creepy, but
we all have different things, right? And that's okay. I love everything that you've shared. Thank you for taking time to talk about kind of where you started, but also how you think about leadership, how you think about who you are, that you show up as a leader, but also as a friend and just such an amazing person that you are. Thank you. The goal today was really to create a space where healthcare leadership feels human, accessible, and real. And I know that's what you focus on every day in your life.
I try.
And so I appreciate you being my first
Yeah.
chai
I'm
speaker,
so
the
honored to
speech
be
dreamer.
here.
Thank you.
I truly am. I just love that you're doing this. You
Thank
talked to me about when it was just an idea, and
Yes.
I love that you've
I've been
executed on
thinking about this for
it.
at least 2 years. And so to finally have the first one happen and we have such a nice intimate audience, I love that. So for everybody who showed up, thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Share it with someone who needs it, and I'll see you at the next chai. It's going to be on July 18th, 2026. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.